IBM TV. Thank you.
It's your fan club, Bill. What can I tell you?
I guess they will not be oppressed.
No, they won't. Not around here. No oppression takes place.
No, really no oppression.
Right.
In any event, from IBM TV, International Broadcast Media, this is the Lawyer's Den. This unique broadcast brings you in-depth discussions with American legal scholars to discuss the current issues facing our nation. I am Bill Trezevant, along with my irrepressible and understated Southern colleague, the fighting Nick Palavita. We are your co-hosts. Nick, will you please do the honors of introducing our guest today?
Yeah, we're going to bring in some very powerful guests today. And of course, we have hailing from the Salt Lake City area, a J.D. Elam attorney, a maven at constitutional law, licensed to practice before the United States Supreme Court from Salt Lake City. Let's give a warm welcome to Jeff Teichert. It's always good to have Jeff on the show because we need somebody that has some semblance of normality that's on the show. But to balance that out, we have to have people that aren't normal. And this gentleman hails from Georgia, who actually went to the University of Southern California, the Ohio State University, for his law degree. He went to receive his LLM from New York University Law School. He teaches law at Georgia College. He's actually a professor. To give us an indication of what goes on in the Tower of Power of academia, I would like everybody to give a warm welcome to Adam Lamparero. Adam, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Great to be here.
I just want to make sure your fan club is still around.
Hope so.
And they are. They have not left.
They've not left the building. Neither is Elvis, by the way. But
yes. And to add some decent looks to the show, we had to go to Lithuania and then bring her into the University of Denver School of Law, where she received a Juris Doctorate and then went on to receive her Master's of Law in International Law, then practices in the great state of Florida. Welcome to the show, Giedrė. Welcome to the show from Lithuania.
You got a fighter here. I'm feeling pretty good about this evening, Nick.
Well, we're feeling good about this evening, but now to depress you a little bit, from New York City, we actually have a New York attorney who went to Fordham and also went to ISU in Albany, who practices law in what we call the Big Banana. He calls it the Big Apple, and his name is Fernando Leal. Fernando, welcome to the show. We have to have our resident New Yorker. Hey, welcome to New York.
And it's UB Law, not Albany. Just
UB Law. Okay, UB Law. Okay. I thought you went to UB Law.
I went to UB Law with Mr. Trezevant.
Oh, you did? Okay, UB Law, and also you went to Fordham, right?
Correct.
Got it. Okay.
And we are fraternity
brothers. And you actually practice in New York, right?
I actually do practice. Yes, I do.
Oh, Lord. Well, the thing is, to balance the New Yorker out, we got to have somebody from Chicago who went to the Illinois Institute of Technology and also the Columbia University School of Law, who is also a chess master. It's always good to have one of those in the show. And we have, of course, our chess master, Frederick Ryan. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we have a full house today. And of course, for those people who are tuning into the Lawyer's Den, we have our den master, Bill Trezevant, who will be giving us and guiding us through the den and try to keep the animals away from each other. So, Bill, start out with the topic. Where are we going from here?
I guess since we actually have our subject matter expert this evening, we are revisiting the very, very, very complicated area and possibly, diverse and controversial area of immigration. And just to set it up for everybody, this is what we happen to have. That Biden could overturn many guidelines using the same mechanism that Trump employed to implement them, the executive orders. However, he will require more than policy declarations, as experts say. That within the first 100 days, Biden is expected to repeal Trump's executive orders that barred most nationals from certain countries from visiting the United States. Initially, restrictions targeting citizens of some Muslim countries, but they were expanded to include other countries. We also have on the deck DACA recipients. And those changes, we have the asylum seekers and whether or not they're required to stay south of the border. In fact, on that point, Biden has already declared that he's going to allow them into the United States under what was our old system that was commonly referred to as catch and release. Now, there was quite a spirited discussion over this and many other laws. Some estimate that in the immigration area alone, that President Trump issued over 100 executive orders. And this, of course, has nothing to do with building the wall or whether or not Mexico was going to pay for it, because I think we're still waiting, I guess, the checks in the mail on that one. So with that, we are going to start with our subject matter expert. Deidre, what are you thinking about the Biden administration and whether or not they should, reverse Trump's executive orders, whether or not doing it by way of executive order is even appropriate, or should it be done with legislation in Congress? What are you thinking? And what would you start with if you were the one with the pen?
Okay, so I have a lot of thoughts. And of course, as an attorney practicing in immigration, I've been on my toes, anticipating for some changes in addition with all other attorneys. Just to compare the importance of immigration, I want to mention that during the previous presidential election, the immigration came to the debate between current President Trump and then runner-up Hillary Clinton only during the second debate. Right now, immigration is one of the driving forces and most anticipated for the change. So when it comes to executive order versus legislatory practice, I apologize for inability to pronounce it. I think it depends from the rule, it depends from the regulation. A lot of regulations, as you mentioned, were incorporated with executive order. I can tell you, I still remember going to a court in Louisiana and reading news in the morning before having individual hearing about one of the executive order that drastically changes my client's case. But that's just one example of how we used to live during those 4 years. I anticipate that the same thing is going to happen. Some regulations that were incorporated via executive order could be retracted by executive orders, such as MPP program, Migrant Protection Protocols, or otherwise known Remain in Mexico order, which President Biden agreed to do and promised to do. He is going to be elected. However, there are certain other regulations that were incorporated via legislatory act, and they would need to be changed by American Procedures Act, meaning that there has to be time for comment given by the community. So we're going to see all those different changes really quickly. I don't anticipate anything drastic and anything quickly overnight. It's going to take a lot of time. However, I think that DACA, the guarantees of DACA for undocumented children to be able to remain in the United States and have work permit, I think that will be done very quickly. I expect that to be done within first 100 days. In contrast, the very known and criticized program of Remain in Mexico for the asylees, asylum-seeking people, I don't anticipate it to be resolved quickly. I think that there's going to be other system incorporated, because there is a fear that if those people will be allowed to enter the United States, we might have the same immigrant caravans as we had prior, for which President Trump incorporated or created this program. So I think it's going to be very muddy, and it's going to take a lot of time, and we're going to see some movement. But I am very, very, very hopeful, because I think the human cost has been insane when it comes to immigration. And I think that we are capable of having a system to really manage and navigate it better, to the better of the United States and also immigrants. To finish, I want to say that immigration makes America great because America was made on immigration. We should not forget that when we incorporate it in our future.
Okay, I got a really good question right out of the bat. I'm loving that. But this I got to ask. You say that you're not really expecting any whiplash. The progressives in the Democratic Party are looking for at least a down payment on all of the campaigning that they've done and the waiting of 4 years. So one, and I don't know if this has been a buzz in the community, but I'm going to ask you first, and we're going to go around the panel. I have 2 questions, just 2. One, what if Biden's executive orders made everything retroactive? Would that change some of the cases that you've already handled? That's 1. 2, how are we going to find the over 635 parents or children's parents that apparently the Trump administration has lost when they deported them? How are we going to deal with those kids?
Okay, so to answer your first question, absolutely yes. the main example would be the Remain in Mexico policy that was
Mhm.
enacted with executive order and could be changed retroactively, and it will definitely affect the current cases, thousands of cases. We're talking about less than 60,000 people who are on paper categorized under program and MPP, and they are still growing. There are still people who try cross illegally right now being placed in this program. So yes, there are certain acts that would affect current issues. And to answer to your second question, the number is not as high to really pay attention to individual case requirements. And I do believe that we have enough nonprofit organizations such as American Civil Unions, we have AILA, that could focus or help to really try to locate those parents and to reconnect those children, because we have to really compensate them and treat the harm that was done. We know
Okay.
that those children suffer between
Okay.
trauma. So
Okay. Fernando.
Yes.
Okay. First, can you just, because we have a new audience, in case they haven't, heard how you look at the situation, perhaps you could just, give them a brief, very, very brief, view on your opinion with regard to immigration. That would be one. But two, I'd really like to gain the benefit of your thoughts on what we do to compensate the fact that the Trump administration lost the parents of 600 plus children. That's over 1,000 people, Fernando. And what kind of payment could we possibly do to make them whole? One, two, and should any of the executive orders be made retroactive? Fernando, I know you're from the big city, so make us proud here. Make us proud.
Yeah, the same thing that I said yesterday. If you come into this country illegally, you've broken the law and you should be sent back. Pretty simple. There is a procedure to get in legally, and it should be followed. And if you don't follow it, you should be sent back. Plain and simple. My parents came into this country legally. They waited. They paid their fees. They did what they had to do. Once they got here, they made sure that they made themselves citizens the right way. And I have thousands of friends whose parents were the same. So, you know what? You come in illegally. You cross the border illegally, be it through a tunnel, like they did in the movie from the 80s, El Norte, or you come in and overstay your visa, which is how most people end up staying here illegally. And it's something that I come across in depositions all the time. And they try to fudge around it. You're here illegally. You should be sent back. Period. There's a rule. Follow the rule. Enforce the rule.
Okay, what about these poor children that are now, without parents? I mean, we've made them, orphans, and it was through no fault of their own, and now we can't find them. I mean, what about the social impact? I mean, one, should we even be finding their parents? Do you even think that? What do we do with the kids? I mean, what are your thoughts, Fernando?
Find their parents and ship them back. And part of your question was, should there be compensation, which means money should be given to them? The answer is no.
Okay. And then what about whether or not Biden should make these executive orders retroactive?
Since it was an executive order that was issued, I don't have an issue with him issuing an executive order to rescind them. I mean, that's pretty much how it goes. He's the CEO of the country. When you become the CEO of a company, you kind of do the same thing. So I don't really, in that regards, I don't have an issue with that.
I know, but that would be progressive, prospective. I mean, from like today moving forward. What if he went back and said, everybody that got screwed over the last 4 years, here's your get out of jail free card? What would you think about that, Fernando?
It depends on what you're talking about. You're trying to make it a blanket statement.
Yes,
so
I am.
It depends. If it's a catch and release program, I don't have an issue with that, because they should have never been kept in Mexico. The point is, you make it here to ask for asylum. You're kept here until you have a hearing to prove that you actually need asylum and you fit the criteria for refugee status and asylum. And I forgot what it is that you need to prove right now. I looked this up months ago, and right now I can't remember what it is that you need to do. So in terms of that program, yeah, that they shouldn't be warehoused in Mexico. They should be warehoused here, awaiting whatever trial and hearing that they need to go to show that they meet the parameters of a refugee or seeking asylum, so on and so forth.
Okay. Well, excellent, excellent, excellent. We have the table set. I'm coming to you, Adam. I want to hear what you have to say, and then Frederick, I'm coming to you. Jeff, you are going to save all of us after this is a bit complete mess. Adam, please decide which side you're on. We have attorney number 1 or attorney number 2. Where are you going, Adam?
I was wondering if we could talk about Roe versus Wade. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes.
I agree with Guidry that legal immigration makes America great. Illegal immigration does not. We have to first secure our borders. And I haven't heard much from Joe Biden on how that's going to happen. Number 2, I do believe in a path to citizenship for undocumented immigrants who, although they broke the law, are already here and have not committed any felonies. I'm not really in favor of ICE going around and breaking up families. But just a few other thoughts. Number 1, I'm appalled that Trump's restrictions on travel from 7 countries that the Obama administration characterized as sponsoring terrorism was called a Muslim ban. That's absolutely ridiculous. The largest Muslim population in the world is Bangladesh, and not a single person was subject to that restriction. Number 2, children being separated from their parents happened under Obama. Children being put in quote unquote cages happened under Obama when guess who was vice president? Joe Biden. Number 3, the idea that you would call those concentration camps is an insult to everyone who survived the Holocaust. I'll end by saying this. We need comprehensive immigration reform that secures the border and makes America great through legal immigration that reduces illegal immigration, and it gives a path to citizenship for folks that are already here.
Oh, Adam, I know I'm taking notes, but Frederick, I promise you. Frederick, please. Your thoughts. Oh, Frederick?
I think he froze.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Then,
I'm sorry.
I
don't have much to add. Just sign me on to what Guidry said. She's the expert.
That's a great answer.
Okay, you see, you've already convinced one, Guidry, so we've got to hang on until we know. That's right. No, Nick, we got to move him up next to her.
Okay. All right. Yeah, because we do have to have somebody on her side. There we go.
That's right. Okay, now, Jeff. Jeff, your thoughts, and just give me 1 second, Jeff. Boom. Jeff, what are your thoughts?
Well, a couple of things. Number 1, I agree with a lot of what has been said. I believe in legal immigration. I believe that immigrants add new ideas and new innovation to our country. It's statistically shown that immigrants are more likely to become millionaires than natural-born citizens on the average, which is kind of interesting. I also think, however, that we have a right and a responsibility as a nation, if we are a nation, to know who is coming into our country and what they're doing here. And I believe then we need a legal immigration system. I think it needs to be a lot less cumbersome than it is now. 2 quick examples. One, I brought up my brother-in-law on this program before. He is currently attending an American university. He's married to my wife's sister, who is an American citizen. It took him 2 years as an Ethiopian to get his green card to come in, married to an American spouse and already accepted to an American university. It seems like that should have been a slam dunk, easy decision, and yet it took 2 years. He actually immigrated to China in between to teach English and make a living while he was waiting to get his approval into the United States. China shouldn't be faster and better at this than we are. Second example, my uncle, who ran a farm for many years until he passed away, had a seasonal worker who used to come every summer to work on his farm, and then he would go back home to Mexico in the winter. We need a guest worker program for people like that is efficient. Ultimately, this guy ended up staying over winters and ultimately stayed legally and immigrated, became a U.S. citizen. His kids are U.S. citizens and productive members of the community. And he still works on my uncle's farm for all of my uncle's children. So, I mean, I think those kind of people make a contribution to our society. We need to make the path for them to come here easier and be able to verify them more quickly. And then I don't think you're going to see quite as many people trying to swim the Rio Grande to get here
Okay.
if they're truly qualified to
Okay.
be here.
No, I
So-
totally hear you. Now, I want for the practical summary, the real world version and a vision of what this problem is. Nick, can you help us out? Kind of what it is.
Okay. We need to put this into some context here. Den. Okay, let me tell you what the context is. Here in North Carolina, we have these things called Confederate statutes. I don't know if you know about that. Adam may know, but he's not a real Southerner. I'm a real Southerner. I grew up in the South. He come from New York, New Jersey, California. He's not a real Southerner. He just teaches in the South. He teaches us Southerners what it's like to be a Yankee. But let me tell you something, what the Yankees did. They said, you got to tear down these statutes because they represent the Confederacy. So they went and tore these statutes down. And here's what I'm telling Fernando what he needs to do to the Statute of Liberty. He needs to tear it down because listen to the words of the Statute of Liberty. It says, give me your tired, give me your poor, give me your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. That's a complete fraud. We all know that. That is absolutely not true. We're not interested in the tired. We're not interested in the poor, and we're not interested in the huddled masses. So what you need to do is take that Statute of Liberty down because it's hypocritical. It's not true. It's not what America is about today. Today, we don't want any of those people. So just get rid of that bloody statute and let them know the truth that we actually have quotas. And Guidry knows that. If you're from certain countries like Lithuania, nice, wonderful European country, even though it's Eastern, you can come in. But if you're from Mexico, no, God forbid, there's too many Mexicans in here, you can't come in. So what we need to do is we need to let this racial quota statute that's been going on for decades and this whole theory that we want your tired and your poor and your huddled masses, just eliminate the Statute of Liberty and I'll be fine with it because at least we're not hypocritical like they are in New York.
Well, Mr. Fernando.
Yeah, the difference, Nick, is that we won, you lost. So therefore, the winner gets to dictate what happens. So therefore, the Statute of Liberty isn't going anywhere. And the person that wrote the poem did a fine job of encapsulating the spirit of what immigration is about. You know, unfortunately, those statutes that were torn down were of losers because that's what they are. They're losers. They lost. Grant kick-stomped Lee in the face and crushed him. And that's really what happened. Therefore, we can tell you to take down your statutes. Now, you didn't ask whether I agree or not, so I'm not going to tell you. In terms of immigration, yeah, I said this yesterday. I'm all for DACA. There should be a pathway to citizenship for people that are here, that, aren't committing major crimes, who aren't dealing drugs, who aren't doing any of those things, because they're already here, especially if you're a kid who your parents brought you to this country at the age of 1 or 2 years old, or even 5 or 10, whatever the age is, you didn't have a choice in the matter. As such, there should be a way for you to become a citizen. Now, once you become a citizen, at that point, now hopefully you can bring your parents along, and there should be a secondary system for the parents. At the end of the day, I thought Nick was going to talk to us about English common law, which has no bearing on any of this, because it is a federal issue, not a state by state issue. I didn't think he would come out against the Statue of Liberty, but that's okay, because again, we won and you lost.
Okay. Well, Nick, while you need the extra time to gather your notes, I did want to just point something out to our learned scholar, Professor Adam. And that's simply this, that Adam, you cite correctly that now that it's no longer a Muslim ban, but it began as a Muslim ban, and it was thrown out at least 18 different times because the Keystone Cops that has been the Trump administration couldn't get it right. So you certainly cannot wrap yourself in the fact that now it is not clearly a Muslim ban, whereas before, the 18 times they tried it, they couldn't get it straight. And all they had to do was ask my colleague Guidry, and she would have told them how to draft the law correctly to keep the unwanted out. Now, as for the children, They are concentration camps. They are in cages, and now you've stolen their parents, and you won't even give them bus fare, not even as a form of compensation for all the trauma that they've gone through. They're going to be irreparably scarred, and I can't believe, Adam, that you would be so cavalier and so callous as to not even, think about that. I mean, your parents were loving, caring parents and supported you all the way through with your athletic scholarship all the way to USC. What a gilded life. And these children are now orphans. How dare you, young man? Frederick, do we have any thoughts from Chicago about the injustices that are going on in the Southern?
I have to respond to this at some point.
Oh, okay. Are you
Well, I'm certainly with you that these kids and their parents have been treated horribly, and President-elect Biden has said that he's going to immediately start attempting to find their parents and reunite their families as he should. That's obviously a decent thing to do.
Should we?
The obvious.
Yeah, should we give them money now? Because quite frankly, I don't think that the American, our Treasury can afford reparations 20 years from now with the interest rates and all. I'd rather give them $10 now than $100,000 in about 10 years when they come back and they say, hey, they were wrong. What do you think, Guidry? Before we come back to Adam, I just want to see if we can all gang up on him. Guidry, what do you think about these kids and Adam's notion that they're not concentration camps and that we lost all of their parents and that he doesn't care?
No, I will agree with Adam on that. I don't think that they are placed in concentration camps. I think they are absolutely treated cruelly and inhumane. And I think it needs to be addressed. I'm sick of hearing the same argument that, under President Obama, those rules were still in effect, that, Biden took some part in it. Even if it was done, it wasn't done at such a scale and extent that it was done by current president. And I think we really need to focus on not who started, how started, but really how did we get to that and why it took so long and such a big extended media attention for people to start seeing it and really vocalizing their discontent and abhorrent situation, into that. I think that right now the nation needs to heal from this because it really was a big deal. I think everyone was able to relate to that. And I think it's very easy for all of us, Nick, Adam, to really understand or try to understand how difficult it is for a minor kid to be separated from the parent and to be placed in such inhumane conditions with not knowing what's going to happen, where it's going to happen. This trauma is going to linger for the rest of their lives, whether we like it or not. And we have to agree to that. I don't think that we should pay reparations for that, but I think that we should acknowledge that it was very inhumane, that it was a big mistake on our part as a nation, and we need to try to do everything to ameliorate it and to connect those families. I would even consider considering those 600 parents to bring back to United States to their families, or at least part of it, or try have some kind of dialogue with them. Again, I don't think that it's an extensive number to set some kind of precedent or really harm the United States, but I do think that we need to address it.
Okay, Adam, I think I've made, I unfairly so, and I'm going to acknowledge it for our audience so I can catch the E-flames. I've unfairly set you up. I've got a number of people that absolutely disagree with you, and now I'm going to ask the really, really, really tough question. Do you have a compassionate bone in your body for these children, Adam?
I have many compassionate bones in my body and in my soul, in fact. And regarding the Muslim ban, what I will say is this. Trump eventually got the Muslim ban right. It was upheld by the Supreme Court, and all's well that ends well. Number two, we can't have open borders. Legal immigration, yes. Illegal immigration, no. Open borders would tank the economy. Number three, there's nothing wrong with looking at the quality of the immigrants that we are admitting to this country. It has been done historically, and it's not inherently prejudicial or stereotypical. Number four, to compare the conditions at the border to Auschwitz, to Bergen-Belsen, or to Treblinka is irresponsible, unprofessional, and appalling. Number five, regarding separation of parents. Anytime in this country when a parent gets arrested for murder, for dealing drugs, for any felony, they are separated from their children. And yes, I agree with Guidry that we shouldn't be saying, well, it happened under Obama. But the fact of the matter is, it did happen under Obama, and it happened while Joe Biden was vice president. The point simply is that I don't have much faith in what Joe Biden is going to do. And the last thing I'll say is, what do other countries do with their immigration policies? I suspect our immigration policy is at least as fair, if not fair, than most. And I'll end with a question to Guidry. What is your specifics regarding comprehensive immigration reform, and how would you implement it?
Oh, Guidry, please take the floor.
Oh my gosh, it's a $1 million question. It really is. It really is. I think that it could be done just from seeing how ICE operates. It's very easy to find, to locate immigrants if they have to. The apparatus is pretty well connected, and there is a way to monitor immigrants. So my idea would be I definitely for border security. It's an essential thing. We have to have it. I don't think that building wall will protect it. However, I do think that there should be a scanning apparatus. People should not be stranded in Mexico where they are exposed to cartel violence. If people who come to United States have family members in United States who could be providing paperwork with tax information that they're going to be sponsors of their during the legal process, I think that they should be released to those family custodies. And then I think that I agree with that. If people do not have substantial cases for asylum or similar relief, they should be deported back. And again, ICE has a apparatus and procedure, and I've seen that while working in immigration close to 2 years, and they could relocate those people easily. I also think that immigrants who have committed aggravated felonies should be first on the list when it comes to being deported. I don't think that consequential people should be deported just because they don't have documents and they work in different farms. I could talk about immigration a lot, but I think that's at least to answer a little bit of your question.
Thank you. So can we talk about Roe versus Wade now?
That's on the agenda for next week, I believe, Adam.
Thank you, Guidry.
Yeah, along with Penumbra Tuesdays. Nick, your thoughts.
Well, I think Fernando wanted to extrapolate a little bit about reparations and the compassion that he has for these poor children that had their parents ripped away from them, deported way down back to Guatemala, and that his heart doesn't bleed for them at all. It's okay to be an orphan, because remember the rule: he who has the gold makes the rule. Who has the power can make the rule, and we have the power. The Mexicans don't. We won the Mexican War. I'm sure he'll remind the Mexicans we won the Mexican War, and so we're going to send their little butts back, and we don't really care. But wait, so Fernando can speak for himself. So nothing further.
Yeah, I have no issues with anything that you said. You could keep talking.
You didn't.
In terms of reparations, I already said no. They don't deserve reparations. I understand that they're going to be long-term effects and all these emotional pleas. Got it. But the bottom line is there are rules in place. Rules are broken, and these are the consequences of breaking the rules. I'm sure that they can find their parents and send them back. I'm sure that the governments of Guatemala know who these people are. And I'm sure that they can get the kids back to them, get them back to where they came from.
I'm sure you like.
Here's the other thing that I find interesting: that kids in cages now is this huge big deal, and it only became a big deal because Trump became president. If Trump would have never became president, we would have never heard of it, because the program had been going on, yes, under Obama, and yes, I'm going to bring it up because that's where we have to start it. Okay, and Biden was the guy that was heading his immigration policies. Yet, if Trump doesn't win, I am 100% sure that this would have never made it to a media outlet. It wouldn't have been front page news. You would have never heard about it. It would have been dusted under the carpet. And the only people that would know about this would have been individuals like Guidry who practice in this area. And they would have been the ones trying to bring it to the forefront in a newspaper. But ABC, the New York Times, none of these, NBC, MSNBC, whatever else you want to mention, would have never brought this to the forefront.
Okay, well, listen.
Yeah. Well, then, wait. The thing is, I need to respond to my friend, who is it, Inspector Javert from Les Miserables, right? The thing is, unless you disobeyed the rules, and hence, therefore, you're forever banished and going to prison because
Not
Inspector
banished.
Javert
Come back the right way.
Right. Well,
Adam is the only one that's making any sense.
I'm sure you love the play Les Miserables. You love Les Miserables because your hero is Inspector Javert.
I like I Dreamed a Dream.
There you go.
Right.
Well, you just listen to it for the music. But listen, let's talk to Jeff. I mean, I guess Jeff. I mean, the issue. I don't think he's the only one making sense. But I mean, you clearly. I mean, you've got an LLM. You're in this really, really, really elite group. What are you thinking? I mean, after all, Fernando only has a JD. Jeff.
Well, two things. Number one, if Adam wants to be president, he needs to work on his hard luck story because he never really responded to Nick's character on being a blue blood. Secondly, I think I agree with the points that Fernando and Adam are making, that we have to have an immigration system that protects our borders. Guidry is also right. That isn't going to be enough because most of the people that are here illegally aren't swimming the Rio Grande. They're not coming past the border wall. What they're doing is coming here on a tourist visa and overstaying it. And that's how most of them are here. So I believe in border security. That's got to be part of the effort. But we also have to look at people overstaying their visas. And we ought to make sure that those coming into our country on temporary visas are checked out so that we have a good idea what they're doing here and that they return when their visa's up. So, I mean, those have both got to be part of the issue, because if we get down to why we're worried about this, why we're even talking about it, well, we don't want terrorists coming into our country. We don't want the people coming into our country that Trump is talking about that, come in here and commit crimes. Now, I'm not saying that's the majority of immigrants. I don't think it is. But those are the people we're trying to keep out. And we're hardly a country if we can't decide who gets to come in and who doesn't. And so I believe in measures to correct those two problems. I also think, we've got to have a system that's better than, I don't remember if Fernando told us it took his parents 12 years to get in. I don't quote me on that, but that kind of a wait time is ridiculous. Even my brother-in-law's 2 years is pretty ridiculous, given that there were really no strikes against him, except that he came from what Trump would refer to as a shithole country. But I mean, we've we've got qualified immigrants waiting to come in, and lawbreakers, coming in on tourist visas and staying or swimming the Rio Grande, and we don't want either of those things. So make legal immigration easier for those who are qualified to be here. Keep the rest out.
Okay. To our panel, this is a fair warning. Any last comments on this subject before we pivot to another subject that will include cages, gilded cages this time? Anyone on the panel? Any last thoughts, feelings that you must be vindicated over?
Sure. I will agree with Nick on one point, that a lot of this is racially motivated in the media, because they only pick on people coming up from Mexico and from countries south of the border. Nobody ever mentions the people who overstay their visa, who come from European countries. Once upon a time in the 80s, the estimate was that the largest illegal group of immigrants in at least New York City were the Irish from Northern Ireland. But nobody ever picked up on that. Back in the 80s, it was, we're having an invasion, the country's going to turn brown. If you look at the Times magazine cover, it was the browning of America.
Right.
That came out around when we were in college.
That's exactly
and yet,
right.
When we were in college, the largest illegal immigration group in New York, and the estimate was that in the country, were the Irish from Northern Ireland who were fleeing British tyranny. Again, they must have revolted against English common law, Nick. But hey, this is what we get. But nobody ever mentioned that. Nobody ever mentions the people that overstay their visa, and that really is probably the biggest source of individuals that are here illegally. And it's something that I come across in depositions all the time.
Okay, and actually on that point,
I think that
I'll give you
the 1950s were discriminated significantly. They overwent that, and now it's settled. But I also want to mention another thing. We need to look at the numbers of people coming. Trust me, there are a lot of Eastern Europeans with overstayed visas who are being deported. People who overstayed their tourist visa most likely are not going to be able to readjust to be legal in United States. And trust me, within the years they have a lot of obstacles when it comes to them and to their families. There are a lot of waivers, but there are a few waivers, but still it makes life more difficult. But when it comes, I think now we are talking about numbers. There are much higher numbers coming from Mexico than coming from different Eastern Bloc countries. They also have green card lottery. I do agree with you. I do think that the race is definitely a factor when it comes to that. But you giving this very blanket statement, and there are a lot of different issues, and it becomes a little bit more complicated than it appears from the first sight.
Well, it's a statement made on 51 years of living in this country and seeing the newspapers and what they print. When you have large groups of white immigrants that nobody ever mentions, they only mention the brown ones. And we can look at the numbers, and numbers are great. But you know what? There are lies, there are damn lies, and then there's statistics, because numbers can be manipulated to say whatever you want. If you follow baseball, you can manipulate numbers to say whatever you want and make the worst player on the team look like the greatest player and get a multi-million-dollar contract when they don't deserve it, and the best player look like crap so that he doesn't get a big contract. And I get it. I understand that there are numbers, and I understand that at this point, there are people coming in from Central and South America in higher numbers than people coming from, I'm just going to say, Europe in general. But there have been times where that wasn't the case. And the only ones that were mentioned were the people coming from the South. Hence the title, The Browning of America, on the Times Magazine.
Right.
That's my point.
Okay, and actually, just as a footnote here, I just want to point out that our current First Lady came here on an H-1B or B-1 visa as a special skill, but her skill was modeling, and she overstayed that visa, and she should have been deported, and yet Trump turned around and paid people off or did whatever he did, and suddenly she stayed. So she's, in fact...
He married her.
Well, yeah, they got married, but even still, that was faster than what happened with Jeff's brother-in-law. And there's one other thing, and this is just a simple point, Fernando. I wanted to see if I could make you smile after this very tough condition. If you looked over my right shoulder,
I see your 49ers helmet.
Yeah, I just wanted. Thank you for reminding from whence I came, and I did have it, and I pulled it out for you, Fernando. But now, so let's get back to any other final thoughts on immigration.
Well,
this really hot topic that's about.
Bill, can I respond to your character assassination attempt briefly?
His fan club is arriving.
Yes, Jeff, thank you for reminding me of that. I'll just briefly say I grew up in like a working class family, worked hard for everything I've got, and definitely never had any privilege. The only privilege that I have, I would say, is my hair, and I don't apologize for that. Now, regarding Roe versus Wade, here's the background. No, just kidding.
Here's the hair.
Okay.
All I can say is, Bill, get rid of the Statute of Liberty and replace it with the Statute of Limitations in old British common law. Okay, but the Statute of Liberty has got to go because they hit the wrong building. They should not have hit the Twin Towers. They should have slammed into the Statute of Liberty. No one would get killed except the terrorists, and they would say the reason why is because it is a lie. In other words, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses. Get rid of that statute.
I am so curious to see how our panel is going to re-scramble when I ask this very next question. And it is about to be on the tip of the tongue of everybody in America. And that is simply this. We've talked about the cages that the children are in. But what about the cages that we are in with these orders of confinement? Is it even constitutional absence of a charge? Of a criminal charge. Normally, even if I'm a criminal and I'm charged with a crime and I'm sentenced to home confinement or anything, I would have rights under habeas corpus, which means I could petition the court and get out of this. But currently, under the auspices of public safety, aren't they really depriving us of our fundamental liberties and thus placing us in our very own cages, and we don't even know it, like a frog in a pot of water being slowly boiled to death? Who wants to start? Nick? Oh,
Wait, Jeff wants to talk.
oh,
Start.
no, listen.
He's a defender of liberty in this group.
There we go. Jeff, you have the floor.
Bill, I almost fainted that I actually agree with you on something here. But Brad Little, the governor of Idaho, effectively did declare martial law. Here's the thing. Our Constitution provides that the writ of habeas corpus can be suspended, and it's very clear that it takes an act of Congress to do it. Now, in your specific state, you may have ways for the legislature to do it, but it's not being done in a constitutionally proper way. It wasn't done in a constitutionally proper way when FDR rounded up thousands of Japanese and put them in relocation camps either. And that's a stain on our history. Now, I look at, there are times when you have to suspend the writ of habeas corpus in time of war, national emergencies. And I had a professor at George Washington University when I was doing my LLM who was actually a State Department attorney. And the UN Commission on Human Rights sent him to Rwanda once upon a time. And they were investigating all of these political prisoners. They had something like 200,000 people that were imprisoned without charges. And he said, well, why don't you send them all to court? And the person he was talking to, this government official, said, well, you realize that with the resources we have to try people, it would take approximately 200 years to try all these people. And he said, well, all right, let them go. And the person laughed and said, do you want Rwanda to go up in flames again? Well, it's a very complicated problem that they have to deal with there. And it illustrates why sometimes the writ of habeas corpus has to be suspended. And I think the last time we actually did it in America was during the Civil War. But I think during times of war or other great emergency, including a pandemic, if you're going to restrict people's freedom to the extent that you've got to lock them down to their homes, yeah, get legislative approval. We don't want executives ruling by royal proclamation. And if you have to do something on an emergency basis, call your legislature within 30 days at least and ask them to ratify it and to suspend the writ, because that's really, I mean, it's the writ of habeas corpus is, I think Jefferson called it the brightest star in the constellation of freedom. It really is.
Well, I guess, Nick, what do you think?
Well, I mean, the famous case Korematsu versus the United States, which is what Professor Tykert was quoting, dealt with a Japanese internment that took place in World War II that, of course, was upheld by the Supreme Court of the United States. So Fernando would say, well, it's legal, it's the law, so they can go ahead and do it. Yet, we all know that the Korematsu has been a stain ever since by interning people in times of war. Now, we're not in times of war, and you're going to confine people? Are you out of your bloody mind? Okay, of course it's unconstitutional. You have every right to go out and infect other people, including yourself, and kill everybody around. Because the thing is, that's the freedom, with a capital D-U-M-B, that America is made great upon. And I'm sure Adam will agree wholly with me, because he is certainly into freedom, and Fernando would also agree with me. We're into freedom, and also agree with me because he knows that the Supreme Court would agree with me because of Korematsu versus the United States. So in terms of quarantine, no, you can't quarantine people. Come on, Ben.
Okay, well, let's go to Frederick before we go to Fernando and Adam. Frederick?
Well, I mean, this is hardly analogous to the Japanese internment cases. I mean, if there's a lockdown order, we're telling people to stay in their homes for the public safety. And, I'm not aware of any governor who's done anything really egregious in this manner. I mean, you can still go out and get groceries and so forth. So I honestly don't see any horrific constitutional issues here myself, at least as yet.
Adam.
The lockdowns, I don't think, are necessarily unconstitutional, but that's beside the point. They're absolutely 100% ridiculous, as was our overreaction to the coronavirus. We should have never shut down the economy. We have put millions of people out of jobs, closed hundreds of thousands of businesses, suicides are up, mental health issues among the population are way up. The COVID-related death count is so inflated that it borders on ridiculous because of the way COVID is coded. And the person I blame for this is not Trump. I blame Fauci. We should have passed a stimulus package that protected the vulnerable populations and gone on as normal with the economy open with social distancing and masks. But now, what do we have during this coronavirus overreaction? We had Fauci saying it wasn't a threat to the U.S. in January. Masks weren't needed in February. And a month ago, he says, we're going to be dealing with this in 2020 until 2022. And then 1 week after the election, miraculously, a vaccine comes out. And then Fauci says, this is extraordinary. The virus won't be a problem in a few months. I call BS. It was an overreaction. The ancillary consequences will be with us for years, even though the virus won't.
Okay. Fernando. Oh, wait. Okay, Fernando, what are your thoughts,
yes.
please?
I agree with Adam, actually, with the exception of the Fauci line. And one thing, Nick, by the way, the Dred Scott decision was also a stain on this country, and it was a rule of the land for I don't know how many years into the Civil War. Things happen. Just like you lost the Civil War, just get over it. Deal with it. Live on. We don't follow common law, English common law either. Deal with it. Move on. I'm sorry your statutes got taken down. Live with it. Move on. I am with Adam. This whole thing was just, this entire lockdown was ridiculous. There was a pandemic, not that, the pandemic of the Spanish flu wasn't that long ago. They didn't quarantine everybody that was healthy. They quarantined people that were sick. And during that pandemic, what was it? 25 million people died in 2 or 3 weeks. That far outstrips any of the numbers that we have now. They also code deaths, corona deaths, if you had a heart attack, but you also seem to have corona. They blamed it on corona instead of the fact that you had a heart attack, and it may or may not have been related to corona. If you want to keep me locked in my house, then there should have been some sort of legislative action. There should have been something that came from the legislator, not from Cuomo, who recently today said you can't have gatherings of 10 or more people in your house anymore, and bars and restaurants have to start closing at 10. I am pretty sure that we are headed for another lockdown where you're not going to be able to go anywhere or do anything at all. To me, it's an overreaction. And we got a country full of pansies that are scared of everything and are looking for a blanket and a bottle of milk and somebody to give them a hug and tell them everything is okay. Quite frankly, we have a country full of Trumps who all throw tantrums and want to be hugged and only want to hear good news. Which is amazing to me that they voted against them. But hey, life goes on.
Okay, well, Nick, here's the question. Going back, and I know it's a favorite one of yours. Listen, all of these executive orders and these confinements, and whether the executive orders are from the president, the governors, or the local safety sheriff, aren't they the most efficient way to run this country right now in the middle of a pandemic, Nick?
Yeah, of course they are. And the thing is, the United States needs to be awarded the Darwin Award. As a matter of fact, the U.S. probably leads the rest of the world in the Darwin Award because you can see just the demographics. And I know that Fernando would say, well, statistics lie, but when you have massive amounts of statistics, it doesn't lie. What lies is the ignorance of the American public and our leadership that has basically killed 240,000 people, still growing, because we do not look at the examples of Malaysia, which has a population of 30 million people, total deaths 258. We do not look at how Australia handled this coronavirus, population 24 million, total deaths 858. We do not look at Taiwan and how they handled the situation, nor do we look at Thailand, which has a population of 66 million, total deaths around 96. Why? Because they did hunker down, they did socially distance, they did wear masks, they did listen to their leaders. Instead, what we did, we said, hey, I have the freedom to ride my bicycle in Sturgis. So we're going to go to Sturgis and express our freedom with a capital dumb. And now, oh, we're infected. Now I got to go on an event. Oh, I'm dying. It's horrible. Of course it is, Mr. Darwin. It's because the thing is, you don't have enough up here and you end up here. And this garbage, say, well, coronavirus didn't kill him. It was his heart disease. Well, of course it was his heart disease. Coronavirus, all it does, it's like saying, hey, I was in an auto accident. The auto accident didn't kill me. What happened was you just died because you lost blood. Come on, guys. We all know it was the coronavirus that took the person down and exacerbated that disease that caused the person's death.
So how do you
otherwise you would say nobody ever died of an auto accident.
Okay.
You know, they died of heart-related diseases.
We're gonna go to Adam really quickly, and then we have to leave time for Guidry because we got to get her in on this because you guys have been hogging the air. Go ahead.
I'll just say really quickly, how would you address the director of the Illinois Department of Public Health who issued a statement saying we code everything as COVID related as long as the person dies with COVID, even if COVID is not the primary or secondary cause of death? Again, I call BS.
Oh, okay. Nick, now you're gonna have to have
Nick, just generally.
Okay. Guidry,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Go on, Dieter.
No, here we'll agree with Adam. I think it was appalling. The really identifying all those deaths based on different reasons, putting the stamp as coronavirus. I think COVID-19 deliberately or inadvertently became politicized way too quickly. I think everyone was too freaked out. There was no good example to follow. People were scrambling. Our leaders were also, there were decisions made that did not make sense. I agree with that. I will tell you, starting March up until recently, I have been traveling at least 4 times a month. So I didn't have any quarantine and but also coming back, for instance, to Miami Immigration Court, at least 10 people passed during this period, and they were, our age and for reasons related to COVID. So I don't know, maybe it would have happened without COVID or with. Something was there, and we still have a pandemic, and we still have to realize that we have to incorporate certain measures. I am not agreeing with Marshall's law, with stay-in law. However, I really do not think that is habeas corpus or warrants such a identification as such, because it is not an indefinite detention. It is something that is inconvenient. It does obstruct certain liberties to a certain extent if it gets too long or too expensive. However, there are certain things that we have to deal because some people do not listen. So we have people who do not incorporate even washing hands or wearing masks measures, and we have other people who like literally wearing the bacteria anti-proof costume. So we really have to find a middle ground, and sometimes we really have to give in order to get. So that's where I'm standing.
I want to speak to this.
Go ahead.
Okay. I don't agree as usual with much of anything Adam said. The excess death statistics show that if anything, the number of COVID deaths were indicating the 240,000 or whatever we're claiming is understated. If anything, it's obscene that we have 4% of the world's population, yet 20% of the world's deaths. Even though we like to claim that we have the world's greatest healthcare system, we certainly have the world's most expensive healthcare system. Trump ridiculously politicized this issue. COVID obviously should have.
I think Adams froze them up.
He's managed to get to this third civil liberties issue. Masks are for wimps, and social distancing is for. Well, I won't use a bad word. It's just crazy. And as Nick has said, the epidemiologists give Trump an F minus for his ridiculous, absurd performance on COVID. It's just disgusting. World War II, 413,000 Americans died in World War II, and Trump is going to kill more than that number with COVID. And that is friggin' obscene.
No, he won't. The only reason he won't kill more than that, Fred, is because he's out of office. That's the only reason. Otherwise,
oh yeah, well, that's true. Biden will at
Right.
least put
and
something on
and
the camera.
all you have to do is look to see what happened to Pan-Asian countries, how they treated COVID, and then you'll see they were successful. South Korea, Japan, Australia, Thailand, New Zealand. You go around, they were successful, and we failed. And that's the reason.
How many of them really tested for COVID?
They are.
The numbers are inflated.
Right. So a bunch of socialist countries
they
use
can't-
Gestapo
they're not
tactics by
socialist
beating their
countries.
population if they step out of the house.
You guys
Sure,
are.
that's the
you
example
guys
we need to follow.
You guys are smoking Americana weed.
Numbers
baby.
are inflated.
I'm
Look
going to
at
bring.
the
I'm going to bring all
Illinois
these
Department
fucking
of
lawyers
By the
on
way,
here.
today's New York Times, measles is on the rise worldwide, and it's far more contagious than COVID, and it kills kids faster than COVID. I don't hear anybody mentioning that. Where's going to be the quarantine for that one?
Narrow-minded Americans follow what.
But it's all Trump's fault, right? He's the worst human ever.
He's the leader. He takes the fall, guy.
Well, no, Nick. I'm going to blame all this on Adam because Adam's the final word for this episode. It's all Trump's fault. Nick, do you want to land this plane? Because
I think the lawyer's den will conclude tonight, and tomorrow we can go back to this. No, we won't. Not till Monday.
No, that's right. So, do we have time for weekend predictions or no, Nick?
Yeah, of course we do, because the thing is, it's not a problem. Do you want to do weekend predictions? That's fine.
Yeah, because we won't be back until Monday, and so
we're back till Monday, so we got a weekend prediction.
That's
All
right.
I got a prediction.
Let's hear a prediction.
Tomorrow, Friday, he likes doing stuff on Friday. Trump fires Gina Haspel, director of the CIA, and Christopher Wray, director of the FBI, because they have not kissed his ass sufficiently.
Oh, okay.
You're not biased at all, are you?
No. Okay. Well,
No.
don't listen.
Right.
Don't throw tomatoes. Just do you need time to have your own prediction for the weekend, Adam, or should I go to somebody else? Or are you ready?
Oh, my prediction for the weekend, just two predictions. Biden will hire me as general counsel in the White House, and number two, COVID's is on the outs, and it's going to be a non-factor in the next 3 to 6 months. I was kidding about the first one, obviously.
Okay, all right. Guidry, what are you thinking?
Well, I think there's gonna be a few more frivolous lawsuit attempts, and they will be dismissed. And I think we're gonna have again a little bit more of the same.
Okay, now, Fernando, I'm giving you a little bit. Do you need more time since you're new to this? Or should I go to the others first and come back to you? What would you like?
You know, I agree with Adam's second point, because that's what I was going to say. So you don't need to come back to me. COVID's going to start disappearing from the front pages now that Trump isn't president anymore.
Okay, all right. Now, I saved my stars for last. Jeff, you so far have the grand prize winner with that doozy from a week ago. What do you got, Jeff?
Well, I think it's going to be a quieter weekend compared to that. I think that like Fernando said, COVID's going to start to disappear. I find it really curious that Trump loses the election, and right after that, Pfizer announces they've got a vaccine. Mm-hmm. If that had come up before the election, I think Trump gets reelected. So, you never know what's going to happen, but I think COVID's going to start to disappear from the news. It's going to be a non-issue almost by the time Biden takes the oath.
Okay, Nick.
Not so fast, my medical challenged lawyers. Here's what's going to happen. Okay, COVID is going to explode. We should cancel Thanksgiving, but we're not going to do it. Instead, what's going to happen? We're all going to travel. We're going to get together, and COVID is going to go off the roof, off the charts in the next couple of weeks. Mark my word, when we come back here Monday, you're going to see COVID off the charts, my lawyer friends. And this is the problem that we had with the Trump administration. He had Michael Pence and not the medical doctors in charge, which they all show up on IBM TV on Medical Friday, and they all said the same thing. It's going to explode. Mark my words. I would bet all my Diet Cokes. I keep winning Diet Cokes from everybody. That's what's going to happen.
I second that emotion.
Well, listen, I will place my Buffalo Bills coin on Nick's bet, but that is our time. And now, Nick, I need you to land this plane for 3 days, please.
All right. Thanks everybody for watching Lawyer's Den, and we'll go back. We'll see you all next week and see how our predictions take true. Look forward to you on Monday.